My husband, you're finally here. Those words used to sound like the happiest moment of my life. Congratulations. Everyone kept smiling at us. Back then, I truly believed I had found my forever. My wife worked from sunrise to sunset, selling roasted sweet potatoes every single day. What I didn't know was that she was secretly worth hundreds of billions. She once promised me that once I earned 300,000, she'd give me a child. Then we'd leave the city behind and spend the rest of our lives with my parents in the countryside. Every time I remembered that promise, I smiled like the luckiest idiot alive. That dream became the only reason I kept grinding every single day. One afternoon, I clocked out 3 hours earlier than usual and headed home. Then, inside the parking garage, I heard a voice that instantly froze me in place. I quietly slipped behind a pillar and watched. Standing there was my wife. Beside her stood a middle-aged man who looked more like a personal assistant than a friend. She was wearing an elegant black evening gown. Dark sunglasses covered her eyes. She carried herself with unbelievable confidence and class. If I hadn't recognized her voice first, I never would have believed that stunning woman was my wife. E was completely stunned. She looked like she belonged in a Billionaire's gala. During the entire 3 years we'd been married, I had never once seen this side of her. She looked absolutely radiant. My mind raced. What was she doing here? Just as I was trying to make sense of everything, the middle-aged man finally spoke. "Miss, you've had me monitor your husband for 3 whole years. 3 years. Let that sink in. And now, it seems we finally have our answer." The moment I heard those words, I was genuinely stunned. Me? A regular office worker? Being investigated? I wasn't some billionaire, celebrity, or final boss. So why would anyone spend 3 years watching me? The man slowly continued his report. Your husband, Mr. Lee Chuan, is honest, hardworking, and incredibly frugal. He once walked to work just to save a single yuan on bus fare. 20 kilometers, on foot. Hearing that, even I almost got emotional. Not gonna lie, hearing my own life summarized like that hit harder than expected. Yeah, I really had been living that kind of life. Then my wife quietly asked a question. Any signs of cheating? The moment I heard her ask that, I could only laugh bitterly inside. I left home before sunrise every day. Worked as hard as I could. Every month, I carried a mortgage payment of 3,000 yuan. And my salary was only 4,800. At that point, worrying about cheating felt almost ridiculous. Bro, I barely had enough HP to survive real life. Right after my wife asked that question, the man answered immediately. Miss, in his current situation, having an affair is practically impossible. My wife laughed softly. Good, that's reassuring. My identity as a CEO still cannot be revealed to him. The evaluation period isn't over yet. Who knows? Whether he's with me because he truly loves me or because of money. All right, give me my clothes back. At that moment, she took a bag from the middle-aged man. And when she changed into those clothes, everything finally clicked. The simple outfits she wore while selling roasted sweet potatoes were never real. It was all a disguise, or maybe a lie. Her true identity was that of a wealthy heiress, a billionaire CEO. I watched her after she changed clothes. She started walking toward my direction. I quickly hid myself in the shadows. Then the man spoke again. Miss, there's one more thing. His expression suddenly became serious. My wife stopped walking. What is it? That person has returned. And then I saw it. Tears gathering in her beautiful eyes. She slowly turned away and whispered, "It's been 3 years. He's finally back!" At that moment, my heart sank straight to the bottom. Who was this man? Her first love? An ex-husband? The assistant carefully asked if she wanted to end our marriage. "In my opinion, miss, now's the perfect time. He still doesn't know your true identity. He can't claim any of your fortune. And besides, do you remember what you once said? If that man ever returned, you would accept him again? Let's wait a little longer," my wife answered calmly. But she couldn't hide the excitement in her voice. Then the assistant revealed the final truth. "You married your current husband because he looks like him." That was the moment I understood everything. So all this time, I was just someone's shadow. I once believed our marriage was built on love. I thought we got married because we were in love. I believed our feelings were real, that we loved each other enough to overcome anything. But that day, I realized I'd been living inside a lie. She didn't marry me because she chose me. She married me because the man she truly loved disappeared 3 years ago. I finally understood. I had only been filling the empty space. Inside her heart, I forced out a bitter smile and slowly shook my head. 3 years, and I was nothing more than someone else's replacement. Now that the original had returned, this cheap copy was about to be thrown away. So much for love. So much for building a future together. Every single promise had been fake. I used to believe that even if we were poor, we could still be happy. As long as we had each other, I thought nothing else mattered. Only now did I realize she had never truly loved me from the very beginning. It didn't matter whether we stayed together for 3 years, 5 years, or even 10. In her eyes, I would always be a substitute. Someone who never deserved her real love, no matter what I did. I could never, compared to the man she'd been waiting for ever since he left the country. And today, she finally learned he was coming home. The love I had protected with everything I had for 3 long years collapsed completely in that single moment. My heart felt completely empty. I slowly walked out, watching cars and strangers pass by as if the world hadn't changed. Yet I was more lost than I'd ever been. I couldn't even remember why I'd worked so hard all these years. I skipped meals, counted every penny, and in the end, I gained absolutely nothing. Just as I stood there in a daze, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my wife's name. "Honey, dinner's ready." The moment she called me husband, I almost laughed at myself. Those words used to be the warmest sound in the world. Once, I wanted to protect that smile for the rest of my life. That was my dream. But now the word husband felt colder than a stranger's greeting. I'd invested 3 years of my life and every ounce of my heart into this marriage. I quietly wiped away my tears before they could fall. Then I forced myself to sound completely normal. "Okay, honey, I'll be home in a minute." When I walked through the front door, everything looked as warm as ever. She had already prepared dinner. Even the simplest dishes somehow tasted like home whenever she cooked them. But I knew this peaceful scene wouldn't last. I'd already made my decision. She had never loved me. So why should I keep holding on? There was no future left for this relationship. It's been a long time since we've had a proper meal together. I looked straight at her. Let's go out and have one really nice dinner. She blinked in surprise. Honey, what got into you? Why would you say something like that? Our family's broke. We're lucky just to eat what we have. Why waste money on an expensive restaurant? If this had happened before, I would have agreed without thinking twice. But that version of me was gone. I took her hand and walked straight toward the door. Chuan, what are you doing? Nothing. I just want one unforgettable dinner with you. In the past, she always had the final say. But not anymore. I'd stopped being the obedient guy she could manipulate. And she wasn't the woman I thought I married. I took her to the most luxurious restaurant in the entire city. The moment we sat down, she frowned at me. Chuan, do you know how much one meal costs here? It's your entire monthly salary. I smiled coldly. So what if it is? It's nothing for a billionaire CEO like you, is it? The second those words left my mouth, her eyes widened in complete disbelief. Chuan, what did you just say? What did I say? You seriously have the nerve to ask me that? I slammed my hand on the table, unable to hold back anymore. We've been married for 3 years. And in the end, you still betrayed every bit of trust I had. You only married me 3 years ago. Because I was nothing more than a stand-in for the man you truly loved. Isn't that the truth? I stared straight into her eyes and demanded an answer. She glanced at me without the slightest panic. Chuan, I honestly have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, you don't? Then let me refresh your memory with some proof. While she was talking with that middle-aged man, I'd secretly recorded everything on my phone. The luxury sedan beside them was clearly visible in the footage. So, is this evidence enough? This time, she didn't even bother making excuses. I want a divorce. She looked at me coldly before finally speaking. If you've already figured everything out, then don't expect to get a single cent from me after we separate. I let out a cold laugh. Han, from the day I married you, I never once cared about your money. I stayed because I believed. We truly loved each other. But now, I realized this marriage was nothing more than a game you played to kill time. If that's the case, then let's end it now. You'll finally be free to go after the man you've always wanted. I'm not staying with someone who never loved me, she chuckled, as if I'd said something childish. So, you're jealous of him. But you're still not qualified to be the one asking for a divorce. Before she could finish, I placed the divorce papers I'd already prepared on the table. Then I pushed them toward her. She smirked with complete confidence. Chuan, can you really bear to leave me? Do you even realize that the men chasing me could circle the planet? How about this? I'll give you 500,000 yuan every month. Just keep playing this little marriage game with me. I still need to find out whether Ding Wang truly loves me. I couldn't help laughing again. Ding Wang. So that's the guy who just came back from overseas. Only then did it all sink in. For 3 years, I'd poured every ounce of my heart into loving her. And none of it had ever reached her heart. I looked at her quietly. Do you really think I'd sell my dignity for 500,000 a month? You're wrong. That's not who I am. In this world, not everyone is willing to trade their soul for money. At least, I'm not. I took a deep breath. Do you know why I brought you to the finest restaurant in the city today? Because I wanted to keep a promise. I told you that on our wedding anniversary. I'd treat you to the best feast money could buy. Today, I finally did. After tonight, let's never see each other again. For the first time, she actually hesitated. She picked up the pen and stared at the divorce papers. Just as she was about to sign, her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID. A smile instantly spread across her face. Sweetheart, I can't believe you got back from overseas so quickly. Baby, where are you? I'll come pick you up. A man's voice answered from the other end. No need. I'll come to you. Just send me the address. She slowly put the pen back on the table. Then she looked at me. Chuan, think carefully about what I offered. If you come apologize, I'll pretend none of this ever happened. As long as you don't divorce me, I'll still transfer 500,000 yuan to you every month. That's more money than you'll earn in 5 years. So, think about it. With those final words, she picked up her designer handbag. Then she walked away without looking back. Outside, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up in front of her. The same middle-aged assistant had come to pick her up. Must be nice being filthy rich. Even your ride looked like it belonged to a final boss. After she left, I replayed everything she'd said. She wasn't wrong. If I apologized and stayed in the marriage, I'd receive 500,000 yuan every single month just to keep playing the role of her substitute. Even if I quit my job, I probably couldn't spend that much money in a month. That was her plan, bury me under luxury until I forgot my own worth. She wanted money to do the talking. Yeah, not happening. That kind of temptation might fool plenty of people. But I wasn't one of them. She wanted me to apologize, just so she could protect her pride. But what about my pride? Just because she had more money, more power, did that mean I had to bow my head? No, Ching-hun. You've got me all wrong. I still have a backbone. No amount of money is enough to make me kneel. You don't want this marriage to end. Then I'll make sure you're the one who lets go. After returning to our rented apartment, I quietly packed everything I owned. There wasn't much left worth holding on to. I'd lived in that tiny apartment for 3 years. Walking away still hurt more than I expected. Not far away, I checked into a cheap motel for the night. Around 10 that evening, I was getting ready to sleep. Then my phone rang. It was Chang Han calling again. I rejected the call without hesitation. I just wanted to be left alone. I didn't want to hear her voice anymore. Less than 2 minutes later, she called again. Then again. After the 4th call, I finally answered. We're getting divorced. So please, stop bothering me. Just as I was about to hang up, I heard her quietly crying on the other end. What's wrong? I asked instinctively. No matter what had happened between us, the paperwork wasn't finalized yet. She was still legally my wife, and I couldn't ignore someone I still cared about. I drank too much. And I forgot my house key. I can't get inside. Please come. Hearing her like that, I hesitated. Part of me still hopes she had changed her mind. Maybe we still had a chance. So I rushed back as fast as I could. Instead of thanking me, she complained that I'd taken too long. I reached for my key to unlock the door. But it opened first. A man casually walked out from inside. "Who are you? Why are you in my home?" He laughed right in my face. "So you're Ching Han's current husband. You're broke. And honestly, you're nothing special to look at. I have no idea what she ever saw in you." "Oh, wait. She did mention you only got lucky because you resembled me. If I looked like you, I'd be too embarrassed to show my face." "Then why don't you disappear instead?" I shot back. His insults pushed me to my limit. I was seconds away from exploding. He only laughed harder. "Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm her boyfriend. My name is Ding Wang." The name hit me instantly. This was the ex-boyfriend she'd waited 3 years for. Before I could say another word, Ching Han walked over to him. She wrapped herself around his arm without the slightest hesitation. Then she smiled sweetly. "Ding Wang, didn't you want to see my current husband?" "See? One phone call. And he came running. I told you he couldn't bear to leave me. Unlike you, who disappeared for 3 whole years. I'd seen her act like an untouchable billionaire CEO before. But standing beside this man, she became a completely different person. I could only sigh to myself. I never stood a chance against him. Watching the two of them together, my anger finally boiled over. "So that's why you called me?" "Just so your ex could take one look at me." "And humiliate me? For fun? Congratulations. Mission accomplished." He's handsome. Successful. Perfect. Isn't that what you wanted to hear me admit all along? "So, are you satisfied now? You seriously think I'm still in love with you?" "No, until the divorce is official. I'm still your husband. I wasn't about to watch you get hurt before everything was over. I'd rather not have you miss the divorce appointment because of some accident." The Ice Queen laughed as if I'd just told the funniest joke ever. "So all men are really the same. You still like me? You still can't let me go. I even offered you 500,000 yuan every month. And you're still pretending." At that moment, I was genuinely speechless. She could really turn herself into the hero of every story. Honestly, it was pathetic. I looked her straight in the eyes. "Tomorrow morning, Civil Affairs Bureau." Don't chicken out. Because after today, I'll become the one you'll never get back. Before she could answer, the arrogant ex stormed in, yelling that I wasn't allowed to upset her. I couldn't help laughing. You two really are made for each other. So, here's my blessing. Grow old together. I turned around and walked away. Even though she shouted for me to stop. Nothing could shake my resolve anymore. The next morning, I rode my beat-up electric bike to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Waiting outside was the arrogant ex. "So you couldn't bear to leave her after all? Weren't you supposed to finalize the divorce today? You're even late. Let me guess. You couldn't give up that monthly allowance. He kept trying to provoke me, but I knew what he was really afraid of. He wasn't worried I'd cling to my marriage. He was terrified I might not divorce her at all. I smirked. So, you're that scared I'll stay married? If I don't leave her, you don't stand a chance, do you? Sounds like you're the real backup plan. The woman you're chasing is someone I'm already done with. His face twitched. He clearly wasn't expecting that. Serves him right. Before he could fire back, I saw the Ice Queen arrive. She stepped out of a luxury car. Are you really not going to reconsider? Just apologize. Don't divorce me, and we'll forget all of this. I laughed coldly. Looks like you're the one who can't let go. But don't worry. You've already got someone waiting to replace me. The second those words left my mouth, her face turned completely pale with anger. You'll regret leaving me. Regret? The only thing I regret is wasting 3 years of my life. Then we walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau together. 1 hour later, I walked back outside. The arrogant ex grinned the moment he saw me. Do you know what the biggest mistake of your life is? It's divorcing her. I looked him dead in the eye. If you've got something to say, say it fast. I don't have time for NPC dialogue. He laughed smugly. Walking away from her will haunt you forever. Seeing him celebrate so early, I couldn't help smiling. You're celebrating way too soon. I wanted the divorce. She's the one who refused. So, looks like she didn't choose you after all. The moment I finished, his expression completely froze. What did you just say? You didn't get divorced? So, you really are after her family's fortune. Marrying you was the biggest mistake she ever made. Right then, the Ice Queen walked out. The arrogant ex rushed over with a fake smile. He said you two didn't divorce. Why? Aren't you worried he'll come after your fortune? She remained perfectly calm. She glanced at him. It wasn't him. I'm the one who refused to sign the divorce. The moment my toxic ex-wife admitted that she was the one who refused to sign the divorce papers, the arrogant ex-boyfriend's smug face completely froze. He couldn't process what he had just heard. In his mind, there was no way she still had feelings for a broke guy like me. But she quietly shook her head. She admitted she couldn't even explain it herself. Right before signing the papers, her emotions spiraled completely out of control. I just laughed. So, this was the first crack in her perfect armor. You escaped this round. But there will be another. If negotiations failed again, I dragged this straight into court and forced the divorce. I'd leave with absolutely nothing. Not a single cent of her fortune. And from that day forward, I would never belong to her again. After saying that, I walked away without hesitation. I could feel her eyes locked onto my back. She watched me the entire time. But I refused to look back even once. This time, I left for real. The next morning, I followed my normal routine. Breakfast, then work. But the second I arrived at the office, everyone was standing outside instead of going in. Something felt seriously off. Why was nobody entering the building? I walked over, then casually asked a coworker what had happened. His answer hit me like a truck. The company had gone bankrupt. E was completely stunned. Everything had been normal yesterday. How could it collapse overnight? Did the boss suddenly die or something? Even if he had, his son could have taken over. There was no logical explanation. This whole thing smelled incredibly suspicious. I questioned several coworkers. None of them knew the real story. The front gate had been locked shut. A bankruptcy notice was taped across the entrance. Even the owner's signature was there. It wasn't a rumor. It was real. But a collapse this sudden felt way too convenient. Something hidden was definitely happening behind the scenes. One by one, everyone gave up and went home, leaving me sitting there alone. I couldn't accept losing everything like this. I still had a monthly mortgage to pay. If I lost my job, then the house I'd been paying off for 3 years would be taken by the bank. Game over. I sat outside that building for 2 full hours, trying to figure out what had really happened. Just as I finally stood up to leave, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom stopped right in front of me. The door slowly opened. An elegant woman stepped out with absolute CEO energy. She wore a luxurious black dress. Every step in those high heels screamed money. Her hair flowed neatly behind her, perfectly styled. It wasn't a stranger. It was my toxic ex-wife. She smiled like she'd already won. "So, your company is gone. Looks like you can't work anymore. Regretting your decision yet? Come back to me. You can choose any position across my companies. Money won't be a problem." She really thought I'd fold. Then she raised the stakes even higher. "If you don't want to work, I'll just give you $50,000 every month and take care of you." That was the moment my anger exploded. I'm a man. She had no right to insult my dignity like that. I'd rather struggle on my own feet than become someone's kept pet. The more she tried to control me, the more disgusted I became. I never wanted to see her again. Then I turned and walked away. I'd barely taken my first step when her cold voice echoed behind me. "Without me, you'll starve in this city." We'll see who's right. I'm still being generous. But if you push me too far, even if you kneel and beg, I won't forgive you. And don't forget, your mortgage payment is almost due. Just wait until the bank takes your house. I slowly turned around and looked straight into her eyes. A look of excitement suddenly appeared on my toxic ex-wife's face. "So, you finally come to your senses. You actually came back to apologize to me? And you're ready to come home with me." Keep dreaming, toxic ex-wife. I'd rather die out here than ever go back with you. And one more thing. This so-called reputation isn't worth a single cent to me. Yeah, you're rich. Yeah, people worship you everywhere you go. But I'm different. You'll never recover your pride through me. So you're trying to lecture me now? Fine, you finally crossed the line. From today onward, it's war between us. She turned toward her car. then suddenly stopped. "Oh, I almost forgot to tell you something. Do you know why you lost your job? I bought your company. And then I shut it down. I originally planned to acquire it and make you the boss. I wanted you to witness my power. But your ridiculous pride made me angry. Just wait and see. One day, you'll kneel in front of me. You'll throw away that precious pride of yours." I watched her drive away. She had completely lost it. That very night, I updated my resume. Then I spammed applications across every job site I could find. To my surprise, the very next morning, I received an interview invitation. It had been years since I'd looked for a new job. Seeing that interview notice filled me with hope again. No way! My last company got destroyed because of her. I lost everything. She can't possibly ruin this one, too. After finishing the interview, I walked out of the building. I let out a long breath. If nothing unexpected happened, the head of R&D position was practically mine. This company specialized in the same industry as my previous employer: advanced intelligent robotics. The country's robotics industry had stagnated because nobody could solve the source code problem. But I was one of the original researchers behind that code. The company's owner valued my expertise immensely. He even told me that once I officially joined, he would fully support my work. He planned to invest 500 million yuan into research. Together, we'd build the nation's largest robotics manufacturing base. Hearing those words, I was genuinely excited. It perfectly matched my dream. A dream I'd carried for years. It finally felt within reach. But the moment I stepped outside, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up. Right in front of me. It was her. Again. My toxic ex-wife stepped out of the car. She glanced at me with a mocking smile. Then she walked straight into the company. The instant I saw that, I knew passing the interview meant nothing. They were never going to hire me. Back at home, I still hoped the company would call. 2 days passed without a single update. I refused to accept it, so I started asking around. Sure enough, she had bought this company too. I picked up my phone. Swallowing my frustration, I called my toxic ex-wife. My rent was already overdue. If I couldn't find work soon, I'd lose my home to the bank. She answered almost immediately. Before I could even speak, she cut me off. So, you've finally surrendered. If you're willing to kneel and beg, I'll make sure you don't starve. Keep dreaming. I will never beg you. You've cornered me again and again. What do you actually want from me? You're already worth hundreds of billions. Why are you sabotaging me at every turn? What exactly do you gain from destroying my life? I demanded an answer. It doesn't benefit me at all. I just think it's fun. I enjoy crushing you. I want you to understand that without me, you're absolutely nothing. So, you finally snapped. That makes me happy. But you still haven't knelt down and begged me. I don't think that day is very far away. You're insane! I cursed without holding back. That's right. So, what are you going to do about it? I couldn't understand how the Ice Queen had become this twisted. It wasn't until much later that I learned the truth. She had always been hopelessly obsessed with her first love. And he betrayed her all over again. He stole $5 million from her and vanished overnight. So, that was the real reason he came back. His girlfriend in America had gone bankrupt. They owed $5 million. He already knew that even after 3 years, his ex in China still loved him. The moment he returned, he started feeding her sweet lies. And she fell for every single one. The instant he got the $5 million, he disappeared again. By the time she realized she'd been played, he was already back in the United States. And somehow, all of that rage was dumped onto me. No wonder I hadn't seen that guy around lately. He wasn't with her anymore. Everything between them had already fallen apart. After he abandoned her, love turned into hatred. She became emotionally unstable. She exploded over the smallest things. Being deceived twice in a row left deep scars in her heart. Her therapist told her that she needed another outlet to fill the emptiness inside her. Unfortunately, I became that outlet. Every time she crushed me, she felt a little happier. Every victory over me became an addiction. I refused to believe that she could erase every opportunity I had in this city. There was no way I was going to starve. The next morning, I pulled myself together. It was time to move again. This time, I wasn't looking for another job. I was searching for investors. Because just last night, everything had changed. The patent for my revolutionary robotics invention was finally approved. It was official. If I could secure the right partner, less than a year would be enough to turn my theory into reality. This wasn't just another startup. It was the beginning of a robotics revolution. But the Ice Queen was obsessed with keeping me down. Every company I approached, every investor I convinced, just as they were about to fund me, she bought them out first. My plans collapsed every single time. That was how she waged war against me. Over the next 2 years, I successfully negotiated with 1,999 different companies. She acquired every single one of those 1,999 companies. She had completely lost her mind. 2 years passed, and she still refused to let me go. After swallowing all those companies, one bankruptcy followed another. The Billionaire CEO eventually fell from the top. The Rolls-Royce was gone. She couldn't even afford a driver anymore. At that point, I honestly thought she'd completely lost her sanity. 2 years. You've hunted me nonstop. Just look at what you've turned yourself into. Do you even realize what you've sacrificed? Was any of this worth it? She used to shine brighter than anyone. Now her face carried nothing but exhaustion. She answered with a cold smile. Even if I've lost everything, I'm still richer than you. Your house was repossessed by the bank a long time ago. Take a good look at yourself. Look at you now. You probably can't even afford a single meal anymore. You're even more pathetic than you were before. I couldn't help but laugh. Nope, you've got it completely wrong. I burst into loud laughter. The Ice Queen frowned. Did I finally drive you insane? Do I look like someone who's lost his mind? Did you really believe I was nothing more than the poor nobody you imagined? Her eyes widened. What do you mean? I guess it's finally time. To tell you the truth, you've never figured out. You spent 3 years pretending to be poor. But I was acting, too. The only difference is that my patience was far beyond anything you could imagine. You kept up your act for 3 years. I kept mine going for more than 20. Did you really think? I only discovered your secret after overhearing that conversation in the basement. Wrong. I knew who you were the day we got married. I knew you were the heiress of your corporate empire. I simply pretended not to know. Do you know why? Because your family used dirty tactics to crush my family's company. You almost destroyed everything my family had built. As the true heir of my family, I could never allow our legacy to disappear because of me. Your 3-year performance matched the trap I'd been preparing for 3 years. 3 years ago, I paid your ex a fortune to leave for America. You thought he went overseas to study? No. He spent those 3 years enjoying life. When the time came, I told him to come back, and every move he made followed my instructions. Now take another look at those 1,999 companies you bought. How many of them were actually legitimate? Check the dates they were registered. They all appeared 3 years ago. You stole what belonged to my family. And today, I took it all back. The moment I finished speaking, she staggered, as if the world beneath her had collapsed. If I hadn't reacted instantly, she would have hit the floor. I rushed her to the hospital. I waited for 3 long hours. Only then did she wake up. The moment she saw me, she grabbed both of my hands, trembling. Please, don't leave me. I have nothing left now. You're the only one I have. Please don't abandon me. I know I was wrong. Don't think about that right now. Focus on getting better. I'll pay every cent of your medical bills. Please, don't leave me. But no matter how she begged, my heart never turned back. As I stepped outside, a simply dressed young woman waved at me. Her long ponytail swayed gently. She looked graceful and innocent. No one would ever guess that this quiet-looking girl had been my greatest strategist. She helped guide my family back from the edge of destruction. Thank you, truly. You've suffered beside me for 3 years. I pulled her tightly into my arms. Tell me what you want. I'll give you anything! Even my entire family empire. She gently shook her head. I don't want any of that. I just want an ordinary life with you. Her eyes suddenly shifted behind me. I turned around. The Ice Queen had walked out of her hospital room. She saw the woman I was holding. Without saying a word, she quietly returned inside. What about her? She asked me softly. I'll send the right person back. I picked up my phone and called her ex. He always claimed he loved her. Then he can come back and take care of her. A few days later, we finally got married. What I didn't know was that someone was watching from the shadows. At that very moment, a mysterious smile slowly appeared on that person's face. So, you two, I won't let either of you live happily ever after.